Jerusalem. The shroud has spent some time in Jerusalem and has traveled through the Holy Land.
What if the most closely examined artifact in history is a momentary record of the divine moment rather than merely a symbol? Long disregarded as a medieval fake, the Shroud of Turin is currently at the epicenter of a spiritual and scientific revival. Centuries of skepticism are being challenged by recent discoveries, which range from pollen traces and ancient inscriptions to revolutionary X-ray dating, which suggests that this linen cloth may actually bear the image of Jesus Christ following his crucifixion. The shroud's mystery grows as more information becomes available. Is it really Christ's burial garment? Or is it a significant example of how faith and science can coexist? Decades of study and discussion have been sparked by the Shroud of Turin, a unique image. Scientists are still baffled by this historical artifact. Many people think that the actual image of Jesus after his crucifixion is imprinted on the Shroud of Turin, a burial cloth. After years of discussion, the shroud is once again making headlines. Jesus Christ, one of the most famous people in history, was born more than 2,000 years ago. Declaring himself to be the Son of God, he performed his ministry in Judea. His crucifixion resulted from this declaration, and Christians believe that he rose from the grave after 2 nights in a tomb. The cornerstone of the Christian faith is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The Shroud of Turin, which many consider to be one of the most compelling pieces of evidence proving Christ's resurrection, is one of the most hotly contested sacred relics. Although the shroud has been thoroughly studied, the scientific community has mostly rejected it as a medieval forgery because of earlier carbon dating findings. Notwithstanding persistent skepticism, it frequently seems as though divine intervention is still directing its course, bringing to light fresh hints that indicate it does, in fact, bear the mark of one of Christianity's holiest occurrences, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Researchers have made a groundbreaking discovery. They have found an inscription on the shroud that many believe to be unquestionable evidence of its authenticity. Let's first examine the relic's extensive historical background before delving into this incredible discovery. The burial garments that were left in Jesus' tomb are mentioned in the Gospel of John, and John's faith in Christ's resurrection was greatly influenced by these items. Many people believe that the Shroud of Turin is the cloth that was used to cover Jesus' body after his resurrection. However, pinpointing its precise history is still difficult because of continuous arguments regarding its veracity. The shroud was first mentioned in writing in 1389, when a French knight by the name of Geoffrey de Charny described a public display of it that took place in Loire, France, in 1355. Even within the church, though, there were doubts about its validity. In a letter to the Pope, Bishop Pierre d'Arcy of Troyes dismissed it as a deliberate hoax and an intricate painting. The shroud eventually fell into the hands of the House of Savoy, Italy's royal family, in 1453, and stayed there until 1986. The relic was formally given to Pope John Paul II and his successors after King Umberto II of Savoy passed away. The shroud was kept in a special chapel in Chambéry, which is tucked away in the French Alps, beginning in 1464. A crucial incident occurred there on December 4, 1532, when a fire destroyed the relic, raising the possibility that it had important ramifications for its authenticity and history. The contentious findings of the 1988 radiocarbon dating of the shroud's composition could have been impacted by outside variables. This holy relic was given a permanent residence in the Royal Chapel of Turin, Italy's Cathedral of San Giovanni Battista, in 1578. It gained widespread recognition as the Shroud of Turin after that. The shroud's intricate three-dimensional representation of a complete human figure is what really sets it apart. Unlike any other artifact in the world, this burial cloth features an extraordinarily realistic full-body image of a crucified man. A lot of people think that this picture is of Jesus Christ. The fact that no one has been able to duplicate the shroud's distinctive appearance or its remarkable qualities is still a great mystery in a world where technology has made incredible strides. The Shroud of Turin has been the focus of heated discussion and close scientific examination for more than 115 years. However, the weight of significant research keeps pointing to its relationship to Jesus Christ. As you may remember, its authenticity was first questioned in 1980 using carbon dating tests. Since their findings contradict other scientific methodologies, archaeological data, and physical analysis, these tests have since been discredited. Let's look more closely at the groundbreaking findings of Dr. Gilbert R. Lavoie, a committed researcher who has studied the Shroud for 20 years by fusing his knowledge of medicine with an analysis of the Bible. His most recent research offers strong proof that the Shroud depicts the precise moment of Jesus' resurrection. According to Dr. Lavoie's research, the image on the Shroud shows a person standing upright rather than a body lying flat in burial. If you look closely at the frontal image, you can see that the hair falls naturally on both sides of the face, following gravity. When examining the back image, the same idea holds true because the hair flows down the back and over the shoulders, perfectly matching an upright posture. This realization is important because the way the body and hair appear when moving from standing to lying down is greatly influenced by gravity. To test this theory, we used an unclothed person lying on a glass surface in a series of experiments. The way the subject's hair naturally falls backward and flattens against the surface is evident in artistic depictions of these tests. Furthermore, the lower leg, buttock, and back contours exhibit pronounced compression, which is not present in the image of the Shroud. The actual nature and measure of the Shroud and its remarkable imprint are further called into question by this discovery. The Shroud of Turin continues to be one of the most significant and contentious artifacts in history as scientific research advances. For years, it was widely believed that the figure on the Shroud was buried in the customary supine position. The actual image on the Shroud, however, defies this prediction. Rather, it displays an anatomical form that is more like that of a person standing up straight. The body's placement and the way the hair falls strongly imply that the figure was standing rather than lying down. It's interesting to note that the figure appears to be floating rather than standing on a surface or leaning against anything. An interesting question is brought up by this observation. Why does he seem to be suspended in midair? The Bible might hold the solution. This remarkable visual depiction is a potent illustration of Jesus Christ's resurrection. There is strong evidence connecting the Shroud to Jesus thanks to additional scientific findings. Dr. Joseph Kabach's research, which found traces of dirt containing limestone on the fabric, is one noteworthy example. Jerusalem limestone is a specific kind of limestone that is mostly found in and around Jerusalem, including in historic tombs. The fact that the limestone on the Shroud closely resembles samples collected close to the Damascus Gate, which is close to Golgotha, the location of Jesus' crucifixion, adds even more significance to this discovery. The man in the Shroud most likely traveled through Jerusalem prior to his crucifixion, according to the match. Furthermore, the picture on the Shroud depicts injuries and agony in striking detail, which is consistent with the biblical narratives of Jesus' crucifixion. The strain of carrying a heavy, rough object, likely a wooden cross, is evident from the abrasions on both shoulders. There are other marks on one knee that point to a fall and dirt traces. He must have struck his head on the ground when he fell because other parts of the cloth show a mixture of blood and dirt. The painful pressing of a crown of thorns is strongly suggested by the presence of thorn-like wounds on the head. The wrist wound, which is about 1 square centimeter in size, is one especially intriguing detail. Relics found by Emperor Constantine's mother, St. Helena, are housed in the Church of the Holy Cross of Jerusalem in Rome. A nail thought to have been used in crucifixions is among these artifacts. It is remarkable that it is precisely 1 square centimeter in size, matching the size of the wound shown on the Shroud. The Shroud of Turin also has a characteristic elliptical wound on the side that is about 2 inches across, which is the same size as the spear that Roman soldiers used. The picture also shows a remarkable contrast between the serum of red and clear blood, which adds to the mystery of this holy artifact. When a person has died and been wounded, this separation of red blood and clear serum is frequently seen. It causes a noticeable flow of water and blood from the side wound, which is something that the Gospel of John mentions in detail. These distinctive qualities point to a single exceptional person and are consistent with only one historical account. The bloodstains thought to be his are arguably the Shroud's most poignant feature. Many people view these stains as potent reminders of the great sacrifice that Jesus made on behalf of humanity. Collectively, these specifics bolster the convincing proof of the Shroud's veracity and the extreme agony that the man it depicts went through. Researchers found traces of 49 different types of pollen on the shroud, which further supports its origins. Of these, 3 are specific to Jerusalem, and 33 are from plants that are indigenous to Palestine. According to this botanical evidence, the shroud was created sometime between March and April. The crown of thorns may have been woven from one of these plants, according to some experts. Physicists John Jackson and Eric Jumper added to the mystery by putting forth an intriguing theory about the figure's eyes' faint markings. They hypothesized that these marks might be ancient coins that were placed over the eyes during a first-century Jewish funeral. Even more astounding is the fact that these coins' sizes and engravings closely resemble those of coins used between 2 BC and 33 AD during Pontius Pilate's rule. The shroud's fabric, which is exactly 2 by 8 cubits, an antiquated unit of measurement, further solidifies its historical connection. Additionally, a 3-inch wide side strip of the fabric is sewn using a special stitch that was only utilized in Palestine in the 1st century. This particular detail offers yet another compelling link to time. For centuries, crucifixions with nails piercing the palms were portrayed incorrectly in medieval artwork. Archaeological findings, however, indicate that victims were actually nailed through the wrists to provide more stability and enable the excruciating breathing movements. These discoveries are entirely consistent with the nail wounds that are visible on the shroud, confirming its authenticity. As if all of this weren't incredible enough, scientists in Palermo, Italy, have made a groundbreaking discovery that shows something really unique. The image on the shroud is dynamic. Rather, it displays faint indications of movement, akin to stroboscopic photography, where a figure seems to move as a result of powerful energy bursts. The Shroud of Turin story is made even more intriguing and mysterious by this discovery. According to their research, the figure on the shroud appears in slightly different positions and exhibits movement in the chest, hands, and feet, which suggests that the breathing motions are natural. This discovery offers even stronger proof that the Shroud of Turin might indeed depict the moment of Jesus' resurrection. The International Center of Studies on the Shroud of Turin, located in Paris, has made a groundbreaking discovery regarding the Shroud of Turin. Researchers have discovered incredible details, inscriptions that defy accepted wisdom, hidden within the fabric. 3 separate and uniformly spaced lines, where no image is visible, have been found by researchers beneath and to the sides of the chin. Official photos of the shroud were painstakingly divided into tiny squares by scientists, who then gave each one a brightness level and used sophisticated software to visually analyze the images. Consequently, a series of letters in both Latin and Greek gradually came into being. The word Nazarene, which alludes to Jesus, is prominently displayed on one side of these inscriptions. According to experts, this text might have been first written by a scribe on a different piece of paper and then placed over Jesus' face, which is a common burial custom that aids in identifying the deceased. These subtle but important markings might have been left on the linen by the ink that was used at the time naturally transferring onto it. Interestingly, the process that created the shroud's enigmatic image was unaffected by this inscription. According to researchers, this finding eliminates the chance that the text was added in the Middle Ages. They contend that even at that time, no Christian, much less a forger, would have mentioned Jesus without recognizing his divinity, because doing so might have resulted in heresy charges. Other specialists have also studied enhanced images of the inscriptions and verified that the script corresponds to writing styles typical of the 1st century in the Middle East, which is precisely when Jesus lived. Given this evidence, it is highly likely that the individual portrayed on the shroud is, in fact, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross to save humanity. This finding raises a significant query. To what extent is the account of Jesus' resurrection central to the Christian faith? In actuality, God's redemptive grace through Jesus, the cornerstone of Christianity, would not exist without the resurrection. Jesus fulfilled his mission of atonement, redemption, and salvation by rising from the dead, thereby confirming his identity as the Son of God. His body was brought back to life during his actual, physical resurrection. It was not merely a symbolic event. According to all 4 of the Gospels, a group of devout women headed for Jesus' tomb early on a Sunday morning with the intention of finishing the funeral rites. To their complete surprise, though, the women discovered that the tomb was empty, and that the huge stone that had been blocking its entrance had been rolled away. The amazing news that Jesus had risen from the dead was brought to them by a dazzling figure, according to the Synoptic Gospels. According to John's unusual story, Mary Magdalene first thought the man was a gardener, but when he addressed her by name, she knew it was Jesus. All four of the Gospels concur on one essential fact, despite differences in specifics. Many of Jesus' disciples saw him and felt his presence firsthand in the days after his resurrection. As the final realization of redemption, the resurrection serves as the central theme of the gospel story. It makes us incredibly thankful for the Messiah, the Son of the living God, who gave his life in order to save humanity. He currently rules at God's right hand and will return in glory to mend and revitalize this broken world one day. We appreciate you spending your valuable time with me. Stick around and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more mind-bending mysteries coming your way.